All right, well, we'll begin then. So the webinar is what's stopping you from being magnificent. Not that we allow things to stop us, but when you signed up for this webinar, there was some information on the sign-up sheet about picking something that you felt might be in the way of your success. There's a variety of things that can come up, of course, but what I wanted us to do is to focus on one particular thing individually. So the second thing was to discover what it is that we feel that we're being stopped from obtaining. Asking a person what they want is sometimes one of the most difficult things for them to answer, because we often know what we don't want, but we don't always know what we do want. I'm going to see if turning off this other light will get rid of that shine. Oh, that's okay. No worries. And finally, what action would we take to obtain what we desire? Ah, welcome, Catherine. Glad to have you here with us. So, the topic, what is stopping you, or what's stopping you from being magnificent? What my talk is about is tearing that sentence apart and looking at it from each word. So that first word, what's? Well, first of all, it's a contraction. Anybody that's familiar with my writing knows that I use contractions a lot, even though in academic writing we don't. But in my writing, in my blogging, in my books, I tend to write a lot like I talk. However, what's is a shortcut for what is. That's obvious. But rather than looking at this from a standpoint of an easy way to talk, let's look at it from a standpoint of being a shortcut. The question is, are we using shortcuts to get where we want to get? I was on a panel last night with 4 other individuals who are in alternative or complementary healing techniques as far as working with Western medicine. And we all agreed that in Western medicine, in particular in the United States, not as much in Europe, I don't think, but in the United States, we want instant results. We want to go to the doctor and take a pill and be well. We don't want to do anything about changing our life, but we do want to have change of some kind without making the changes. So what shortcuts might you be taking in whatever issue it is that you're looking at obtaining, or goal that you're looking at obtaining, and the blockages that might be between you and where you're going or where you want to be? What shortcuts might you be taking that you actually could stop and do some definite work on? Now, some of these issues, we took a poll, or several people answered the poll, and it was just really all over the board. There wasn't one thing that actually came up that was like a common thread through everyone. Things like self-doubt, health, habits, anxiety and worrying that I'm going to talk about in just a second, finances and money. The basic things. People are concerned for the most part about their health, their prosperity or wealth, their relationships, and how to have full self-expression in their life. It's really basically everything that we talk about and we're concerned about tend to fall into one of those 4 areas. So if we take that what's apart, we get first what. So the what is an example of the issues that we just talked about. The is extremely important. What is stopping you from being magnificent? Not what was. We all have things in our past that have caused us to look at life in a different way. We've had challenges. We've had some of us have had terrible things happen to us in our lives, where other people say, "I don't know how you could have lived through that." But those are in the past. The other thing is, the is right now. It's not what's in the future. In psychotherapy, I've heard and often used the example, the difference between anxiety and depression and this isn't clinically accurate, but I think it gives people a pretty good idea, is that depression is often regrets about the past, whereas anxiety is worrying about the future. And the truth of the matter is, we can't do anything about either one of them. There is nothing that we can change in the past. In his book, Gifts from Ichus, Wayne Dyer writes about this imaginary story where there's a civilization on Jupiter. And they actually can do a rewind. If they don't like what happened, they can actually rewind what happened and do it again. They have a do-over. We don't have do-overs. What's happened has happened, and we either accept it and move on, or we stand in that and wallow in it for as long as we need to, some people their entire lives, worrying about what could have happened, how it could have been different, or asking ourselves, how guilty we should be about what happened. And the same is true about the future. Right now, in some of the comments that I got on the poll, there's a lot of people that are worried about the future, not just in this country, in America, but around the world, for all the types of things that are happening. So there's a lot of worry about what will happen, but this is where mindfulness and staying in the moment, that present moment, is so important. Because when we stay right in the moment and appreciate what's before us, this is when we can be more aware of the blessings that we do have. Because of this worry about the future, many people never really get on their way or on their path using the various steps that they need to take to get where they want to go. Because they see the plan and they're looking at it and they're thinking, oh my God, step 30, I have no idea how I could do step 30. I can't do step 30. That's not going to happen. There's just no way. And so they never take step 1. But the interesting thing is, as we take these baby steps little by little by little and moving toward that, instead of being fearful about the future, by the time we get to step 30, it's a snap. Because we've got all this other background, all this other foundation built in under us. So what's stopping you from being magnificent? What's stopping? Stopping. We're thinking about what's stopping. We're thinking about what's wrong. Is that the way to success? Now, there's nothing wrong with looking at the issues that we have in our lives, the challenges that we have in our lives, the problems that we have in our lives. There are things that don't go the way that we thought they would. We sometimes find ourselves in situations where we have no idea how we got here and how we're going to get out of it. But without acknowledging it, we can't move forward. But if we concentrate on that, what we concentrate on increases. So the question about what's stopping us is, could we stop looking at what's stopping us and start looking at what could help us? Are we concentrating more on the problem than we are on the solution? A great example of that is, in my life at least, I'm able to say, I knew that would happen, and it's about a good thing. And I know that at least 2 of the people that are in the audience on this webinar feel the same way, and that's great. But the 3 of us are unique and not something that we find in the world around us as much as we would like to. Most of the time, when someone says, I knew that would happen, it's inevitably about something that we didn't want to happen, or there was prediction of some kind of ill will that actually occurred. So the question is, when we say we knew that was going to happen, I knew it was going to happen, are we going to be happy about that? Or are we going to be so concentrated on everything that's wrong in our life that we're going to be celebrating the fact that we were right about some ill-fated incident that occurs? So what's stopping you from being magnificent? Each of us here tonight are concerned, or should be concerned, with what's stopping us individually. You. Not your mom, not your partner, your spouse, or your offspring, your child, your children, not your best friend, not someone who is in power. What's stopping us? Frequently, when we begin to go on any kind of a path, whether it's a psychological path, a spiritual path, personal growth path of any type, we see changes in ourselves and we immediately want to help those around us. And that's compassionate, that's empathetic, and that's wonderful. But without being able to work on ourselves, to actually be there for ourselves, to change our own lives, we're not going to be there fully for others around us. So rather than trying to figure out what's stopping someone else from getting where they want to be, we need to look at our own situation. What do we need to do to move from where we are to where we want to be? Now, for some of us who are, for example, trying to advance in our field, we may be looking at a person who is doing what we want to do, and we see them fail at something. Or we feel that if they are succeeding, that they must have a success or they must have a secret of some kind that we don't have. So what are we getting into? We're getting into judgment. Again, we need to be focused on what we are doing for our advancement, and of course, use the help that's out there. Be willing to look at those who could mentor us, taking classes that we need to take, or rereading things that we've already read and need to apply in a different way. I think of something really as simple as flossing at night. I know I should, but I don't, not every night. And I think about that, and I think, well, I'll just brush. No, I don't even need to use toothpaste. I'll just run some water in my brush over it. It'll be fine. I'll floss tomorrow night. It's not a big deal. In the time that we take to talk ourselves out of these little bitty small things, we could have already done it. How many times as parents has a parent said to a child, if you'd stop arguing with me, you could have had it done. And yet we don't always think of this way for ourselves as well. So what's stopping you from being magnificent? From being. From denotes distance. It denotes a separation. So we're not really seeing it as being something that's in our life. Now, true, if you've got zero in your bank account or if you are overdrawn, you're not necessarily going to, oh, great, I have all kinds of money. Well, you don't have the money. But that doesn't mean you don't have a prosperity consciousness. That doesn't mean you can't change that situation. So the important thing here is not to look at whatever this goal is, the success, the change that you want to make, whatever it is that you're looking at. It's to look at that as a point of completion, not as a point of something that is going beyond where you are and impossible to get there. Now, this entails visualization. It entails picturing ourselves as we want to be. It's talking about practice. It's talking about being, not just saying the prayer or doing the workshop or listening to a talk or reading a book and thinking, oh, wouldn't that be great if. It's actually taking the time and having the willingness to apply what it is that we've already learned or that we already know. And sometimes it just takes a little kick in the fanny from ourselves or from somebody who loves us. What's stopping you from being magnificent? Not going to be someday, being magnificent. I've been saying I'm a writer for going on 3 decades. And I have published some books. And just this week I got my first award for one of my books, which was, I'm kind of jazzed about that. But I haven't made millions of dollars like some writers have. And people tell me, they say, well, I'd like to write a book, but I just don't know what I want to write. I'd like to write. And I tell them, if you're going to be a writer, then you must write. I would say probably only, I want to say maybe 5 or 10% of what I write actually gets out there in a blog or a book or a posting. I write a lot, but I write because I write. And this is what we all have to do, is to, whatever it is that we're doing, do it. We don't have to be making money at it. We don't have to have other people giving us accolades or awards that we're doing it. We do it for the sheer joy of doing it. And yes, it's that attitude of act as if. Now, does act as if mean that we're pretending and we don't really believe it? We're just trying to be something that we're not? No, we're trying to show that we are what we say we are. We are acting as if, because we have already attained our goal in our own minds. Think of a TED Talk, for example. TED Talks always look so polished. There's a couple of them, yeah. But most of them they look really polished. They look like, oh, this guy he must be great, or she must talk like this all the time. Many of them don't. But one thing that they have all done, the ones that are successful, the ones that we look at and think, wow, I wish I could talk like that. I wish I gave a speech like that. I wish I gave a talk like that. I could never be on TED Talk because I can't talk like that. They have practiced and practiced and practiced and prepared. They know their material. They know it backwards and forward. It isn't just something that they're thinking about casually. Casually, I'd like to know more about Egyptology and the gods and goddesses of Egypt, but I'm not going to spend that kind of time studying that, nor would I attempt to give a talk on it because I really wouldn't know what I was talking about. But there's other things that we each know that we can do, we can share, and that really get us excited. You can tell how excited a person is just by looking at them. They'll be talking about something, oh yeah, my job is this and this and this and this and this. You know, well, what do you like to do? Oh, I really like to go hang gliding. And you wouldn't believe the last time I was up there. And or whatever the situation is, whatever the activity is or the job is, they get excited about it. They're turned on about it. Why? Because they want to do it. And they have practiced what they're doing. And they have spent time. The Olympic athletes, for example, they go over their routines many, many times during their practice sessions, both on and off the course or the gym or the pool or wherever they are. They're going over to their minds constantly. They're practicing 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 hours a day. Who knows? Actors and actresses as well. You see a scene in the movie, you think, wow, that is so great. I wish I could be an actor like that. Or I wish I could be a director like that. Or I wish I was a cinematographer. I could get just that right thing. How many times did they have to do that? It didn't happen in one take. The lighting had to be right. The lines had to be right. The lighting was right. The lines were wrong. The positioning of the actor was wrong. Somebody forgot to put film on the camera. All kinds of things can happen. But the finished product is what we tend to judge ourselves about. And when we're sitting here just thinking about whatever it is that we want to do, and we can't see that finished product, then we can become discouraged. And by being that, by seeing the product, whatever it is, whatever your goal is, that's how we can be in that moment, to be excited about it, and it begins to create it. As we begin to create that idea in our own mind, then spirit and the universe just seems to start just steamrolling things over and over and over again so the right thing happens at the right time. What's stopping you from being magnificent? What's magnificent? I don't know that I've ever called myself magnificent. I don't use magnificent for people a lot. But when I do, I really mean it. But it's not always my idea of magnificence that I'm looking at. Many times I'll see someone that's doing something that I would never want to do, or never really have the desire to spend the time. A friend of mine, for example, does beautiful, beautiful woodworking. Just exquisite woodworking, chests and chests of drawers and furniture and all sorts of things. And I don't see myself. There are other things that I want to do. Would it be cool to do that? Yeah, it would be cool to do that. But I don't see myself getting to that point because there are other things that are more interesting to me. That's his idea of magnificence, not mine. I have my own definition. And just like our vision or our desires or our goals, it's about what we value as magnificent, not what the world does or other people do. I'm currently leading a group of ministers who have non-traditional ministries, virtual ministries like the one I have, and focus ministries on various particular areas of life, whether they be chaplaincy or working with children or the elderly or PTSD with veterans, things like that. And we've been asking ourselves, the metrics by which ministers and congregations and churches are judged don't apply to us because our format is completely different. So we've been asking ourselves, what is success to us? What are our metrics for success? And each one of those have a different idea. And that's fine because we're all individuals. That's the important thing for us to decide what it is that we want to exhibit as our magnificence. So, what's stopping you from being magnificent? That's the question I'm posing to you right now. So instead of using the question tab, let's use the chat tab and see if any of you would like to make a reply or ask a question about this on anything that I've talked about. Maybe an area that you're looking at that you'd like help with. Don't be shy. So let's see on the poll. Well, it looks like that anger and frustration is one of the issues that did come up for a number of people, as well as worry. So let's look at that for just a minute, about worry and anger and frustration. Someone told me one time that frustration is anger without enthusiasm. And Helen, can Helen just wrote in something in the chat box. I think that it's a matter of personal acceptance of your greatness. Can other people see that? There's some other people in the room already. Can you see that? Just type yes in the chat box if you can. I'm asking for my edification as well as everyone else's, because this is a new platform for me. So I'm trying to make sure that I understand the logistics of that. And while you're doing that, I will say, yes, it is personal acceptance, isn't it? And we're not always trained or taught to think of ourselves as great. We're taught to, especially women in our society, are taught to think of ourselves as, being modest and don't blow your own horn, so to speak. And that can be harmful to a lot of us in a lot of ways, because we're not taught to be magnificent, and yet we all have that ability. Other thoughts or questions? Okay. Well, if there is nothing else, I promised you a 30-minute session. I'm a real stickler for sticking to time, because I'm very honored that you showed up, and I don't want to take any more of your time than what we've already agreed to, which is 30 minutes. Helen says, if you're looking for permission, I give it. Okay. Well, we can certainly stick around for a little bit longer. I have another call soon, another conference call that I have to be on very soon after this. So I do have to go in a few minutes. But if anyone has any burning questions or thoughts they'd like to share, just type it into the chat box. While someone's doing that, if you decide to, the next webinar that I'm going to be presenting will be on Wednesday, April the 26th, and the title of that is Secret to Success. It's going to be a class on the basics of scientific prayer, affirmative prayer. What some of you know as spiritual mind treatment, if you've heard me talk about that before. So it's an introduction, a beginner's class, but also for people who are using this already. It's a great way to review it and to look a little deeper in how we pray and the difference between asking for what we want and using this type of prayer to convince our own minds of the good that is already ours to have. So I'll be advertising that and hope that you'll join me for that as well. This seminar will be, or webinar will be available online within a day or two. And so I'll be sending out, you'll get information on that. You should get automatic emails on that to let you know when that is up and running. All right. Well, we're going to close for tonight. Thank you again for attending. If you enjoyed this webinar, please share it with people when it's up and running. And if there's something else in particular that you would like me to talk about in the future, by all means, let me know. Drop me an email at terry@terrydrewmarrinan.com. I'm also going to be using this format to reproduce some of the talks that I've given over the past 20 years. So hopefully we'll be able to get those going during the summer. So once again, thank you so much for showing up. Appreciate so much you being here and for your interest in what we're presenting. All right. Have a great evening, and we will talk again soon.